That brings us to the last discussion of today, the panel around nurturing social impact ecosystems. We've had discussions starting with how can business and society come together to partner and to be more collaborative, and then we went into the verticals of education, skill, and healthcare to bring it all together and to talk about capacity building both internally and externally. I'd like to invite Sri Krishna Sridharmurthy to moderate the last discussion around nurturing social impact ecosystems. I'd like to invite all our panelists for this discussion. Pratyush Kumar Panda, Head of CSR at ACC Siemens. Prerna Langa, CEO of Yes Foundation. Nagma Mullah, COO, Edelgive Foundation. Dr. Ajit Kumar Nigam, Director, CSR and HR at White Swan Consulting Limited. And Shashank Tripathi, Partner and Leader, Strategy and at PwC India. Over to you, Krishna, to introduce the panelists and moderate the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Aarti. I have the absolute pleasure of putting together a panel right at the end of the day. So big round of applause to all of you for staying on and being with us the whole day. Really, really appreciate it. And thanks for your patience. Pratyush is a CSR and sustainability professional with over 19 years of experience and has been in firms like CARE, Vedanta, and now at ACC. He's also part of the Aspire Circle and a member of CII, FICCI, and very active part of the Global Compact Network of India. Nagma is a CA by profession, but Nagma works primarily in creating and maintaining a sustainable philanthropy network to support Edelgive investee portfolio with the funder community. She also heads the investment and programs, fundraising and partnerships, and also employee engagement at Edelgive. Dr. Nigam is the director of CSR and HR at White Swan Consulting, and he's also the managing trustee of the foundation. He's over 35 plus years of experience across public sector, private sector, and primarily in capacity building, in the space. We also have Prerna, who holds the distinction of setting up Yes Foundation from ground up with a vision to build an empowered and equitable India. And she's developed the strategic business plan and operating systems for the foundation, which does a variety of interesting projects, which we'll get to hear from her today. And finally, Shashank, though he's wearing the, he's kind of coming from PwC, but he's wearing a very interesting hat of being the chair of Jagati Yatra and some very unique initiatives around entrepreneurship at the middle tier of India that we'd love to hear, his thoughts about as well. So, thank you, everybody, for joining us. We will, what we will do is we'll have each of the panelists share their thoughts around the topic of discussion, which is really building, how do we build a strong ecosystem within an organization working on CSR, not just internally, but also externally working with the NGO partners. And how do you build capacity both for strategic thinking and also the implementation aspects of the CSR. So maybe I can start with Prerna from your perspective. Shashank, will come back to you in the end because I know you have a slightly different viewpoint on this and you're seeing it in a slightly different perspective. But Prerna, if you can share with us how Yes Foundation is trying to build capacity of people that you work with and how you're looking to bring in the resources, the various resources that you have to actually contribute not just to your portfolio, but actually the ecosystem at large.
So I represent Yes Foundation, the social development arm of Yes Bank. And, we were really privileged because we are a startup. We just set up 3 years ago. So our focus is we really look at ecosystem building. We are sector agnostic because we recognize as a corporate foundation, it's about leveraging our skills and social intelligence, and that's the value we bring to the table, more than funding and anything else. Having said that, we recognize from a non-profit perspective there are areas that need assistance, specifically in the area of communications and HR and fundraising. And looking into that, we saw youth as a huge enabler because 31% of the population is between 18 and 34. And they really have the capacity and the enthusiasm to impact, to create impact. But it's about engaging them. And we realize that with youth, you cannot patronize or sermonize or tell them, do this, do that. They're not going to listen to you. It has to be a challenge and it has to be experiential. So we instituted an innovative way of tapping into youth. We had a 101-hour social filmmaking challenge, wherein at 6 o'clock in the morning on like India's Independence Day, you get two topics. And within 4 days, you have to make the film. The emphasis is not so much on the film, but what happens when a youth interfaces with a non-profit or a everyday hero, the inner change that takes place. And we started this and we had 2,200 participants in year 1 in 2013. And year 2, we had 50,000 participants. And year 3, it was a world record of 5 lakh participants across 2,500 cities and towns across the length and breadth of India. So, thanks. So it really became a youth movement because it catered to what youth wanted in terms of a challenge. And what we saw more than even these big numbers is change happening. So people actually developed lifelong association with the causes. They would celebrate their birthdays, make a film on the non-profit, volunteer with the non-profit. And we even have young people who have started their own enterprises. So in Delhi, we have this guy, Kuljeet. He was so pained. He had to make a film on animals, and he was so pained by the plight of animals, including somebody tying a cracker during Diwali to an animal and the animal lying helpless, that along with his IT job, he cut his IT job by half, and then he started using technology. He started a movement where he connected youth to animal rescue. So he has 1,600 youth currently volunteering, and he has brought down the animal rescue time from 4 hours to 1 hour. So like him, there are thousands of examples, and I don't want to carry on, but this is just a case in point. So we have instituted a Change Makers Fund to support people like him. And with the films, we have about 5,000 films. We go to colleges and talk about mindset transformation, because we believe that really if you transform a mindset, then the person will find his or her own resources. So this is what we do to build capacity of nonprofits to help them in their communications and also volunteering, etc. And to deepen their impact, we also have a fellowship program. We work, in fact, very closely with Sattva. And we started a fellowship program where we connect undergraduate youth. Because while there are lots of opportunities for anybody who has an MBA, but there are not so many opportunities for undergraduates. So we realized that with youth, they are good at communications, they're very good and fast with their phone. And nonprofits could do with some kind of assistance. So currently we have 46 fellows that would be graduating on Saturday, and I invite you to the graduation ceremony, where they worked with nonprofits on the social media, documentation, filmmaking or photography, depending on the JD of the nonprofit. And this was interspersed with training. We had partnered with ISD WPP. WPP is the largest advertising group. And to build, coming back to the topic of building social impact ecosystems, we are creating an entire ecosystem program for nonprofits to work with them on design thinking, because we believe design thinking is very strategic. It's a new thinking which is only coming to the corporates, but we want to bring this to nonprofits, and we also would be working with nonprofits on capacity building in the area of communications and an accelerator program. So you'll be hearing more from us. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Prerna. And having seen some of the work that Prerna and team do at Yes Foundation quite closely, I also realized that this also encourages them to think about careers in this sector, and that was some of the questions that came up in these fellowships. And not only careers in this sector, but also wherever they go, they kind of seem to take this thinking of social with them, which is also a great way and the kind of impact that I saw, working closely with that program. So, congratulations on that. Pratyush, from your perspective, in terms of capacity building, you've done it in a very interesting way in ACC, all the way from your team, taking it in a very consistent manner down to the grassroots. So if you can share from your perspective how capacity building within the organization, within ACC, your team, and also your entire partners, which is a fairly diverse set of partners across different parts of India, how you've been able to kind of manage and create that ecosystem where, your CSR is, I can see is thriving now.
Good evening, everyone. When it comes to capacity building as such as a word, when I was working for CARE, the major focus, major investment, anything was with respect to capacity building itself, so that whatever you are doing today gets sustained tomorrow and day after as well. Almost in the same line, we also work. ACC today works in almost 200 villages, reaching out to 1 million lives, impacting directly. Indirectly, we are not calculating here. But when it comes to capacity building here, and all our programs are purely with civil society partnership, NGOs partnerships, academia partnerships, and also for-profit social enterprises. And today we have we're proud 42 partners across in 16 locations from Jammu Kashmir to Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra to West Bengal. In being a 80 years old company, we're relatively very widespread by virtue of small locations across, and most of these locations are pretty interiors. And for capacity building, what we used to do, we all our NGOs, we have mandated couple of capacity that is need to be there within our ACC CSR sustainability team, as well as our NGO partners teams. So on those lines, last year through IICA, we have trained all our NGO partners, coordinator or NGOs project manager, certified by IICA on their short-term course, so that they knows what is CSR, how company earns and then spend. It's not about somebody is donating and we are spending. So bring out that perspectives. In addition to that, for that specific area, like suppose I'm having a 2 to 3 NGO partnership in Chandrapur, so you also identify 2 to 3 other NGOs, 1:1 ratios, and we used to create a platform where our capacity building support is for all, not limited to only our my implementing partner. This is how we are bringing out, and there we used to share all our technical know-how so that it can go down to community down the line. And we purely go in a 3-pronged strategy. First one was our own employees with CSR and other department. Second one was our civil society partners. And third one, we used to create community volunteers, what we call change agents across all segments, all thematic area. Suppose, we call ASA in health. Everybody knows they are change agents. There are youth, those who are working and giving veterinary support in their own village. And in that, for 100 population, we used to create one youth as a change agent who is not my employees, who is nobody's employees, but being paid by the community, so that the entire technology or entire know-how of the project is being transformed to the community, concerned community, and for a lifelong period. And we add on to their capacity building, so that within 3 to 5 years, the project is withdrawn and the know-how is sustained in the same community. Some of the bright example that is coming out, I'll bring out 2 examples. One is in Chandrapur or Maharashtra. 5 years back, we started partnership with BIF and some other 2 NGOs, and started working on silly things like self-help groups and microfinance. Today, this year, the NGO graduated as a part of our graduation strategy, assessment strategy, and the SAG Federation, worth of almost 7,000 women, has been federated, they've been registered, they've got FCRA, and they are my today proud partners, and they are sitting over a turnover of 5 crores per annum. And this all happened because of all collaborative approach, and today I can save that money, and this money is going to some other community. If I continuously keep on feeding this money, money will go out, but impact will be very small. Second bright example, we are in Himachal Pradesh. Our farmers produce their good quality of Simla mirch, capsicum. And they were not getting good price there, hardly 10 rupees, 15 rupees per kilo. Same thing coming down to Delhi, you will never get below 50 rupees per kg. And in off-season, it will go up to 200 rupees. We fed them into a farmer producer organization, registered them as a IPOs, and they started working as a cluster approach on capsicum. And today they have direct tie-up with Sappal and some other big vendors. You know, their product, same product is going not below 40 rupees per kilo, and vendors are taking from their doorstep. And again, their turnover has crossed last March 200 crores, 2 crores plus. So this is how you are building up capacity in the community on a three-pronged strategy, so that the entire know-how goes down to the community, and we take out this money and deploy in some other spaces. And I think we must carry forward a lot of us because time is also there. Thank you so much as of now.
Thank you so much, Pratyush. And I think it's great to hear how, you know, the sustainability of the projects is so linked to the capacity building, you know, that you're doing with them, and that almost gives you an opportunity to have an exit strategy, you know, in some of your projects. We will come back to you with, you know, with a couple more questions as we go along. So Ragma, from your perspective, I know, you know, I understand that at Edelgive, you look at investing in organizations rather than on projects, you know, and you're looking to really grow organizations who can then scale and impact. So would love to hear your experience of, you know, how that approach has worked for Edelgive, and what the key learnings and what, you know, audience here can take away in terms of how to look at growing their portfolio of, you know, organizations they work with.
Sure. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I am the co at Edelgive, but my introduction here, how Krishna mentioned, is I head 3 verticals of investment, partnerships, and capacity building. This introduction itself shows a lot of how we approach our work. We have dedicated 3 verticals to our objective of supporting organizations in the space of education, livelihoods, and women empowerment. Like Krishna said, we invest in organizations, we invest in people. And projects just happen to be one of the structured ways in which that materializes. Everywhere where we are funding, so let me step back again. Edelwise, when created Edelgive about 8 years back, the objective was always to enable the not-for-profit sector. What we really do is identify great organizations who are small and medium in size, support them with a lot of capacity building. When that relationship starts getting good, connect them to our friends in the donor segment who can co-fund it with us, or who can adopt significant bits of it. How this becomes an ecosystem of faith and collaboration and good practices is that we have worked very hard with the NGO as a partnership in supporting them financially and enabling them non-financially. They become our partners, and we become their supporters and their representatives in all forums. This also became very important to us because our chosen segment, like I said, is the small and medium, which is the group that typically gets ignored when funders go and look out for great NGOs to support. Typically, the ones who are visible, the ones who are all over, and the ones who are more articulate get more focus from donors. And that is fair, that is great, because good work, whether or not articulate, should be getting its focus. But there are also a huge number of good NGOs working in grassroots, doing some amazing work, whose only lack of ability is being able to connect to the donor segment. And what we do is basically support them, enable them, and represent them. Last year, Edelgive ended up with having at least 30 projects on which we had co-funding support from donors. This was a huge, huge validation of our work. We do not recommend NGOs to any of our friends or co-donors unless we have full faith in them. So if I name an NGO and say it's good, we've gone through the route with them. We're not kind of throwing names casually over the table. There's a lot of work that goes. One more thing we do is we also very carefully select our co-donors. As funny as it sounds, it's very important to have like-minded donors come and jointly support projects together instead of donors who come together because there's a mandate and they need to co-support projects. So if to answer your question, Krishna, that how do we develop this ecosystem, we've managed to successfully now very proudly bring together the three very important stakeholders, the NGOs, the implementing partners, the co-donors, and the capacity building that happens largely through our employee force. We have, and how have we really done it? There's two things that we've put: serious intent and serious allocation of resources. Because capacity building is not cheap. Capacity building is free for the NGO, but someone's got to pay. And someone's got to get those resources. And if you've mandated it, if you've earmarked resources, then that is the only way it worked out. I have Preeti here from my team who's totally dedicated to identifying great people, great resources who can fuel in that capacity building. We have funded an organization called Toolbox, which is like which supplements and complements our capacity building initiatives. So what I mean is that any organization can do it. It's not so difficult, but the two elements that really go is the intent and backing it with serious resource.
Very well said, Nagma. Thank you so much. And I think the point of co-donors is very interesting, and I'll come back to that, because I know, I met a lot of CSR heads over the last 3 to 6 months, especially the question of, can I partner with other CSRs is coming, in again, and it's kind of varying from size, from small CSRs wanting to collaborate and pool to very large, CSR projects wanting to collaborate as well. So I'll just come back to that as an example. But before that, Shashank, if we can get your thoughts on, you bring in through Jagrati Yatra a very different element of an ecosystem, which kind of in many ways overlaps with what is kind of being talked about here from two perspectives. One, the entrepreneurship part, which is creating more enterprises or organizations that can be supported by the kind of CSRs we are talking about. At the same time, bringing in human resources and high quality talent, which is your Yatri network, and as mentors, as entrepreneurs and all of this who can enter this ecosystem as well. So how do you see, the CSR law, and how does that overlap with the work that Jagrati has been doing?
So, I firstly, it's a great privilege to be on this panel. I want to start with one provocation, which is, I've been hearing many of the panelists before talk about how insignificant the CSR sector is and how they can't do things on their own. I want to be very provocative to say that I don't think this room realizes its power. And that power is not just the 9,000 to 20,000 crore funding that CSR has, but the tremendous amount of market connects, mentorship, and other value add and excellence that the private sector can bring to the table. Let's just do some maths. 20,000 crores is potentially what we can do. I think you can multiply that by 2 if you take the in-kind thing. That's 40,000 crores. I was asking, what is the spend of other organizations in these sectors? And there was a conservative figure given of $20 billion. I say half that, $10 billion. That's 60,000 crores. That's 100,000 crores. If you look at the government budget, that's 20 lakh crores. But if you take out defense, if you take out some of the other things which we cannot participate in, actually this 100,000 crores can be up to 17% of the union budget. So we have to be very, very clear that this CSR law gives this room, all of us, tremendous amount of power to make a difference. We should not be shy of using that. There is a lot of defensiveness that I've heard, and I think that should go away. We have tremendous ability to really contribute to nation building. And I can tell you that for the last 70 years of our independence, nation building has been confined to largely the government. And that 20 lakh crores, you know that, how much of that actually goes to the district level. And I have been to a district. I'll do a lot of work there. So I think we should be very, very proud of the fact that this CSR law allows us something which is extraordinary. It is very unique in the history of the world, frankly speaking. The second provocation is, how do you use that? Let's just take my figure of speech of 100,000 crores. Our belief at Jagrati is that entrepreneurship can be a force multiplier. So for instance, we are doing a lot of work now. Of course, Jagrati Yatra I'll talk about in a minute, but what we're really doing is at a district level. We are saying, how do we create an ecosystem? And of course, the 4,000 Yatris who have been through our Jagrati Yatra for the last 10 years, we've been doing it for the last 10 years, have become great agents of change. And our mantra is very simple. Find leaders, believe in them, give them market connects, give them funding, give them mentorship, and they will blossom. And we don't focus on the top edge of the diamond. And by the way, we do not agree with Prahlad's pyramid. I think it's done a lot of damage to our thinking that we are from the top, we will tell somebody at the bottom what to do. Actually, it's a diamond. If you look at India demographic of 1.3 billion people, there is about 300 odd at the top who are doing all right. There's about 350 to 400 at the bottom who are not doing particularly well, but there's enough focus on that from charitable. There's 700 to 800 million people, which is about 11% of the world's global population, which is actually no longer destitute. It has purpose. It lacks purpose. It has a lot of energy. Many of them are young, and they require direction. And our belief at Jagrati is very clear that the only way to give them direction is to give them a purpose. And as Gandhi said, when purpose comes, the means will follow. So when you give them purpose through the yatra, through the district level ecosystem that we're creating, then these people are able to create something of value and they take entrepreneurship. So let me come to the second provocation, which is 100,000 crores can be multiplied at least 10 times if a person like Ram Narayan, who's currently doing Pustak Haldi, which is a small enterprise around haldi farming, essentially processing haldi, he will create about 100 jobs. I agree with the previous speaker that he will create 100 jobs because he will take his enterprise of about 22 crores to about 50 crores. But that will create 100,000 farmers who have been selling haldi at a pittance, so to speak, to something which is extraordinary. So these force multipliers will multiply your 100,000 crores by 10 times, and you can actually make a difference to this country. We can change this country. And let me end my presentation by saying, this is the last chance. 20 years from now, our demography is going to do what it is doing in China, which is China has about 1 billion people in the working age population. It's going to go down. As you know, Japan is already hurtling down that thing. In the next 20 years, if we don't build a country of substance, we give it up. So there has to be urgency. There cannot be, kind of casual conversations about this. This has to be something that we have to sleep on the floor if we have to make this work. That is what I think Jagrati's mission is. And I'd like you to contribute to it because we are building an ecosystem and a center in a very, very ordinary district in the northeast, or in the north of India, in eastern UP, which is back of beyond. I've seen many entrepreneurship centers set up in Gujarat and Karnataka and all those places, which is very important. But I can tell you something, you have to go to the heat and dust of eastern UP, Jharkhand, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Orissa, Assam, parts of Madhya Pradesh to really make a difference. So I hope you can join us in that journey. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Shashank, I agree that this is kind of the last chance, and the urgency is very, very critical, for us to all move fast, because we always keep saying that, the problem is running faster than the solution. The solutions are still walking where the problem is running much, much faster. So, Mr. Nigam, from your perspective, you've kind of seen different businesses across public sector to the private sector, and also from an academic perspective. And capacity building is something that you have focused on, very strongly, especially from a human resource development perspective. And CSR has been an area where, you've tried to combine that aspect. So what has been, your comment on the law so far, your experience of how it's rolling out from an ecosystem perspective, sir?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. And what Mr. Shashank has just said, let me take the thread from there. I've spent about 33 years in government and retired as additional secretary. And seeing that government from inside, if 1 lakh crore is spent, what reaches to the beneficiary is only 15,000 crores. And that is a known fact. And I was with the 12th five-year plan. Dedicating fund is no issue for the government. We dedicated 1 lakh crore for 12th five-year plan just for physically challenged people. That is the purpose of this particular act. Now, if it has to come out of the domain of government, there the whole route is inefficient and corrupt. Let me share very frankly, I don't think the other route which the CSR will follow has got all potentials to do justice. Here there may be less corruption, but there are also inefficiencies with the public sector and development sector. And that is where when we are talking about how to nurture this particular domain. Now let me devote a little bit and just devote about 3 minutes time. I would say we have moved from the mode of philanthropic social responsibility to the era of, pardon me to say, namesake CSR. And from namesake CSR to the showcase CSR. And gradually we are moving and talking about strategic CSR. But strategic CSR is also not the end. What I would like to share with the fraternity here, those who are from development sector, what I call it is a configurational CSR. What we need to have a configurational CSR. To nurture this particular domain, if we move towards the configurational CSR, which has been talked about in different bits and pieces, let me just share what are the thoughts about it. We must do 6 things to nurture this domain. One of them is we create right configuration, and that configuration must have heart of NGO, the mind of corporate, and also the soul of the beneficiary. We must bridge. The second, we must create the trust, bridge of trust, and the trust deficit which exists of the two perspectives of the corporate vis-a-vis NGO should be bridged, and that bridging can only take place if NGOs understand the language of corporate and corporate understand the language of NGOs. And that is possible if we go into the right type of global, I would say, practices of accreditation of NGOs in the way it is being done across the globe. I think that's the area we need to focus on. Thirdly, the capacity building is so important. Capacity building of NGO to understand the way of working of corporate, not just the way of working of development sector. Same way, corporate should understand the heart of NGO and their way of working. And probably what IICA is doing is the human capital which will be required will be huge for taking care of this particular sector. And there has to be focus on outcomes rather than investment. And in the morning presentation, when we only talked about investment is not sufficient. We must go into SROI and ROI. If we go into that, if we invest 1 lakh crore, through this particular development sector, we can give results to the tune of about 10 lakh crore in terms of SROI. What matters is SROI, not just the investments. And there has to be stronger connect of those who are doing all these things, which will need more volunteerism rather than investment. Stronger connect, I think that can change the domain. Two recommendations I would like to suggest. The capacity building of 5% limit must be exceeded, increased to 7.5% if we want to make, particularly in initial years. Secondly, there should be more teeth to the law so that we do not fall into the vicious circle. And we must encourage corporate based on pull as well as monetary. I think these are some of the thoughts tonight.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nigam. I think that's very, very interesting, and soul of the beneficiary piece is I think very critical, right from the beginning of designing to implementing the whole program. I just, will take a few questions in the interest of time, maybe 3. But before that, to both Nagma and Pratyush sir, in terms of partnering with other corporates, that's a question that keeps coming. And I think we're seeing some good, trust building between non-profit sector, and we've seen how that with the corporate sector has kind of evolved. But between corporates to corporates, you talked about, Nagma, the co-donor model. If you can talk a little bit about that. And Pratyush, from your side, you're part of the Aspire Circle. I know there's a lot of peer-to-peer discussion, learning that happens, and I've heard, many people who are part of that say that that's quite useful for them. If you can talk a little bit about how that sharing of knowledge and also sharing of resources, has been enabled in the current ecosystem.
So I tell you, this was the tougher piece for us, the collaboration between funders. The collaboration between NGOs we were able to influence much easier. The capacity building we could engineer. Preeti did have to struggle a lot to get the right resources, but once these resources came on board, it was fairly. The toughest bit really was this collaboration between donors, because every donor has a governing body, a mandate, a budget, a brief that they have to individually follow. So really our job, and because our intentions were so strong, was to create value propositions and only take those value propositions to people for whom it makes sense. You don't go with the same product to every potential buyer, right? Similarly, you don't take the same value proposition to every possible CSR or non-CSR funder. So we actually spent a significant amount of time in identifying the kinds of people who would like to find, who would be interested in certain kinds of domains. And what are we really bringing to the table? Why should a co-donor really participate as a co-donor? How does it become a very transparent, trust-based involvement with each other? See, when 5 corporates come together, someone has to give, right? Someone has to become that platform. Someone has to be the engineer of discussions. Someone has to be facilitating. So we were very happy to take on that role. And that is why I think this started working. Plus, the mandate was also very clear from our side that you don't become the bad guy if you refuse to fund us or if you refuse to fund the NGO. Number 2 was we didn't really have anything to gain out of it because we were always a zero profit model. So nothing came to us. It all went to the project. So that also became something that, there was nothing that we were really gaining out of it except that this model was something we really wanted to make work. That became our second thing. Also, how we would start is when we came across a phenomenal project or when any of our NGOs became ready for scale or ready to take more projects, more funders on, we would try to invite all the existing donors together for a discussion.
Nice.
Because a critical part in the movement ahead for an NGO is also to take along the existing donors. I think that is one piece that gets missed out a lot, where we are so comfortable that a donor, when signed up, is here to stay for 1 year or 3 years or 5 years, that we forget to take him along the journey. So we started doing that. It's very tough. It's very tough to get 5 or 6 or even 3 different people working in different places together on the same table on a mandate. But when it worked beautifully. So a lot of these things really came together and it has started working and it works really well.
Very nice. And it's very then. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you talk about this Aspire Circle. Aspire Circle is it's a kind of fellowship program for people, those who are at the social sector from NGOs, corporates, for-profits. So we're taking a pool of 1,000 by next 5 years. As of now, we are almost 100. Within that, we have peer-to-peer kind of different kind of project in collaboration going on. NGOs, corporates, corporate to corporate, NGOs to NGOs. As you said, I'll cite one example on corporate to corporate. Like ILFS has a product called K-Yan. Some of you must be knowing about that. What's K-Yan? It was innovated by IIT Mumbai and being now patented by ILFS Education. It's a machine which has a projector, which has a laptop, which has a sound system into it. It can attach to your iPhone, your Android, any kind of phone. And it can work with AC and DC. Even if you take it village, you can attach to your bike battery, it will start working. That's a very high quality project as well. In other end, ENY has a content development exercise within them for elementary educations. So we took help of Pratham Asar from out of Asar report and designed some content through them, created CD out of that, put it into KN, and through ACC CSR, we reached out to 20,000 children every day, even today also. It's a collaboration. And cost was how much? 1 KN in one site. 1 KN can go to multiple schools on that area. You know, there are NGOs in Tikeria, UP, Gauriganj, where, electricity is not there for more than 12 hours, and it's on the great constituency called Amethi, where I have a power plant. You know, my NGO friend, they used to put KN with a rubber stick to the pillion seat, attached to the bike when there is no current, put it on any white or off-white board with the 2 CDs. One side education content is going on, one side some good kids movie is going on. So the moment, crowd is bigger, they'll take out and put education CD. And the evening lasts for 4 hours. Just imagine they're learning on the open sky. Cost is almost winner. And we happy to share everybody's logo credibility across there. It's come such a one project. One more example out of India Collaboration Lab about a UNGC during filing in Orissa. ACC, Development Alternative, couple of NGOs and corporate come together. We brought different things from our side. Created in one platform, given to one NGO, RGVN there in Bhubaneswar. They executed the entire projects, and everything was divided up within ourselves. with co-branding. It's possible, and it makes a lot of sense going in that way because everybody comes with different kind of expertise. Let's do it. I think with a minimum spend, you can maximize your impact. If you add on, like we do 1:10 ratio of government fund, suppose 1 rupee going from CSR, try to mobilize 10 rupees from government related projects. They'll be happy to do. Some good corporates will come across, they'll happy to do that and implement a big project, keep it routed through some NGOs, it'll get sustained.
Thank you so much, Pratyush and Nagma. I think it's very useful and encouraging to see that kind of innovation and partnership. So we'll just open up for about maybe 2 to 3 questions towards really the end of the day. Anybody has any questions? Count till 5.
Question will be, how will go back to home in Mumbai crowd and all.
Okay, sorry, I see a hand there. I didn't see that. And ma'am, maybe you can start with you.
Yeah, I'm Shubha. I'm from an organization called Sattva, and we work in 14 states and health. This is for Pratyush. So when you said we need to transform, what do you mean? How can we transform? We did hear one specific idea where if you put in 1 rupee, we can get in 10 rupees from government, that becomes 11 rupees. That is some kind of transformation. What are other ideas we need to use to transform this?
Depends on different specific projects. I'll tell you, it was to Pratyush or to... Okay, then you go first. I'll give you one small example of Mohammed Ismail. He's a 23 years old kid, and a young kid, or old you can say, after the case is given to you. Wadi is a place in Gulbarga district of Karnataka. I have a huge cement plant there, which is Asia's biggest. Through our DISA project, skilling project, we have not started with this government or within 2-3 years. It's running for 7 years from now. And we have given skilling and assured placement, all enterprise development to all those kids passing out of that. So this Mohammed Ismail said, sir, मुझे driving training करना है. So we asked, क्या driver बनना है? बोलता है नहीं सर, driver तो बनूंगा, लेकिन कुछ और plan है. But then he said कि I want to create a driving institute in this area. 2 years back, he passed out, 3 months course on driving. He has not gone for any, as a driver to anywhere. DISA center has capability to attach them to the nearby RTO center. Within 2 years, he has created 2 driving institutes, one in Wadi, one in Gulbarga. Per month how much people are being trained and all. If you calculate on SRI, it is enormous. More than 2,000 youth are being trained by him itself. It's not my DISA. This person, I have only spent roughly 3,000 rupees for his training. In 2 years, he has created livelihood for 2,000 youth of that area. This is what I call a transformation. Otherwise, this kid will be some, and in India, any youth, whether matric pass or fail, the moment they reach to class 10th, then don't look back their farm field. This is the real truth and the ground reality. So they always, whole day, they'll come to city and evening they'll go back to their village. So there are a lot of projects in this way. If you go deep into all, you can get the sense of and how things are getting transformed. But that need to be creatively thought up while designing your projects. If a skilling center talks only for placement, 100% forget. You will not achieve above 50%. There are n number of boys, those who are willing to go for self-enterprise kind of works. There are youth, at the age of 28, having 2 kids, family. Even you give a job outside, he will never migrate by leaving the family home. He needs something to do at, sitting in the same area where he can come back to home.
So I'll just add a few things to that. I think transformation is actually a very human act. And I see it that it starts from an individual. And the way I see Pooja Shahi, who's one of the persons who went on the Yatra Transform, was, she was an ordinary kid to nahi kahunga, 25 saal ki ladki ab. So she was an ordinary lady from Devariya. She had never gone out of Devariya. Devariya is a small district in eastern UP where Jagrati originally comes from. She came on the journey. This was in 2014. And she was changed a bit. She got exposed. Then she came back again in 2015. And she got this. She used to do something on Spanish micrum weaving, which makes some jewelry. And then she was a changed person in the next journey. She said, I'm not going to leave Mumbai till I get funding for my venture. And now she has got funding. Somebody came up and said that I'll become 5149 partner with you. She has started a company called Devariya Design. This time Vibha, one of our office bearers, went to her village. It's called Suroli Pakoli. And you could see that the whole village had come out to see this girl and her journey. So I think that is the transformation. It has to happen at the 1.3 billion people level. That's one. The second is that we need to transform ourselves from saying that if the citizen can become an entrepreneur, he's not just a voter. क्या होता है हमारे यहाँ? अच्छा वोट डाल दिया आपने, वापस आ गए, 5 साल बाद फिर वोट डालिए, फिर वापस आ गए. That's not the vision of citizenship. That's not democracy. That's votocracy. Democracy is that the citizen has to be involved in building. And on our side, on the private sector side, I think we need to see ourselves less as taxpayers, more as corporate people who have a lot of value to add. I think both sides there's a mindset transformation which is required. And the last piece, before I go to the other question, I think we need to start having fun building India. What has happened is that we have left nation building to some jholadhari, somebody somewhere else, RSS ही करेगा या सिर्फ bureaucrat ही करेगा. नहीं, ये हमारा काम है. We should bring building India into the center of the drawing room. And that's when we'll start having a different conversation. This cannot be somebody else's job. This is our job, every citizen's job. That is what is called republic.
I'm really sorry. I have tremendous pressure from this side, to end the session now. And we have, so we'll take your question later on, maybe offline. Thank you. But before we end, need one quick single line comment, on how do we strengthen the ecosystem going forward. And Mr. Nigam, if you can start from this side. One line. Yes.
I think if we respect each player in this domain, including government, NGO, corporate, everybody at same level, we can nurture this sector.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Intent, resource, and trust.
Intent, resource, and trust. Brilliant. Pratyush sir? Collaborations. Okay.
Partnerships and taking things to scale, that's really important.
Brilliant. Scale is very important. In a country like India, we need that. Shashank?
Focus on tier 3 districts, focus on women.
And I think that's a great note to end this, session on. A big, round of applause for all the panelists. And thank you for your patience, for, waiting for an extra hour to finish the session.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We'd like to offer our token of appreciation to all the panelist members. It's been an exciting day of deliberations, discussions, and an exchange of ideas. I'd now like to invite Mr. Nikhil Pant and Mr. Sri Krishna on stage to discuss the way forward and give the vote of thanks.
To briefly tell you that in the next few days and weeks, you will hear from the IICA. There'll be a mail coming to all of you. We've got the data bank of all the registrations, and that will include all the outcomes of this session. The entire thing has been videographed, all right? We will be sending you an outcome document with very specific areas of action across each of the sections that were discussed. The first half in the morning and then the second half post-lunch, which includes everything right from data analysis to the knowledge products that were launched, to the trainings that we intend to do together with our partners. And happy to say that the Bombay Stock Exchange has offered to host a conference like this once every year at the BSE, and we will be engaging with you as well as the other partners in the ecosystem to see how we can plan maybe the dates very soon over the next few weeks or months, and try and develop this as an annual interaction where maybe the next time we can hear more from you, because this time we were trying to present our cases, our presentations, the body of work that has evolved over the last couple of years, especially once the law has kicked in. So Krishna, I think from the IICA side, my part of the vote of thanks goes out to both the Bombay Stock Exchange and Sattva, along with all our esteemed partners who pitched in cash as well as in kind. We've been very frugal in our expenses, especially Bombay Stock Exchange has given us this entire auditorium and all the facilities totally pro bono. Can we give a big round of applause to the Bombay Stock Exchange? And maybe collectively to all the sponsors, we've got IAAD here, Hindustan Petroleum, ONGC, the rest of them are all listed here. Let's give them all a big round of applause. We could manage this without taking any entrance fee from anyone, and we would like to continue that trend because we feel that once the best possible minds can come and interact with us, it makes a wonderful interaction for us once a year to get going. Now, as I said, the IICA will come back to you, and we see next 3 years as very critical. So the way forward for the next 3 years in many ways with a stable central government, we would like to charter out and present to you and ask your inputs as to how and where you can collaborate with us on trainings, on advisories, on ecosystem samman, on index, feedbacks on parameters, etc. So thank you all once again for spending your time. And I would like to end by thanking Sattva and especially Aarti and her team. A big round of applause to them because they've really worked very, very hard to get an attendance of 350 plus for this event. It wouldn't have been possible for that. And last but not the least, my own team at Learning and Development at the IICA, which includes Mayuri, my colleague here, and a lot of other people, our research team at the IICA who couldn't come here. I would like to thank them. I would request all of you to give them a big round of applause.
Like Shashank said, we all had a lot of fun putting this together. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll continue to engage as we go along. Thank you.